It's very interesting for me to be here because I'm not the same kind of Black person that I am in France. We still think that being French means being white, being Christian. Even if you're not actively Christian, you have Christian culture. And if you're not like that, you have to behave in a certain way, to be grateful, to say that you're glad that France gave you so much in order to be accepted. It's never for good. You don't know like when you can be just stripped of your identity if you don't fit to a certain mold. My name is Rokhaya Diallo. I'm a journalist, an author, and a filmmaker. I'm also a researcher in residence here in Georgetown with the Gender Justice Initiative. I was born and raised in Paris, France, to a Senegalese and Gambian family that has made me really aware of issues of race and of the fact of being a French citizen who is not white in a post-colonial context. Being a journalist, a filmmaker, a writer, and a researcher, and a public person has given me the opportunity to create a space to speak about the issues untold and to give visibility to groups, people, issues that are usually overlooked. So I have two different jobs. One of them is being a pundit, so commenting the news. And I know that, being myself visible in the public sphere, on television, in the radio, I bring a new perspective, a perspective that is not the most common in the French media. And at the same time, I get to interview people. So the way I pick the people I interview, the issues I cover, is also a way to expand the lens of what is usually worth being covered by the traditional media, but also make my own content. So I've directed several documentaries focusing on issues such as the representation of Black people in the French cinema, the image of the French Parisian woman, but also had co-created a podcast on race with my friend, author and novelist Grace Lee, about race in France, and it was the first French-speaking podcast about race. So being in that position gives me the opportunity to bring a focus to some other issues than the ones that are traditionally covered by the media. I was born and raised in France, in Paris, and I've never lived anywhere else. And growing up, I didn't really question myself about being French because it was something that was obvious to me. I grew up in a neighborhood of Paris that is very diverse, so not being white wasn't really something that singled me out from the rest of the children and the teenagers. But then as a young adult, I went to university, I studied, and the more I advanced in my studies, the less there were people looking like me. And at some point, I realized that to many, I was not French. Like many people asked me where I was from. It was the first time in my life that I had to explain to someone that I was French. And the only reason why they would think that I wasn't French was because I was Black, because everything else that you could see on me was looking French. And I realized that in the public imagination, in the movies, in the cinema, on television, we were not that many. And it was very difficult to picture a French person being Asian, being Black, being, from North African background. Like, I really grew up watching TV without never seeing anyone who looked like me. And even as a young adult, I used to, just watch TV debate and get angry over them and try just to respond to them in my living room. So I started to wonder why people like me didn't get to be just seen as French as any other white person. From the very beginning of my public presence, I had to face so many slurs, insults, threats, various ones, not only from anonymous people online, but also from very high-profile figures, including people from the government. So it's very difficult because you're constantly challenged in your views. You lose opportunities for real. I've lost many jobs because I was speaking up. Your reputation is damaged. And you have to defend yourself, which means, going on trial is not free. You have to find the adequate people to defend you in front of the courts. So that's costly, that takes time, that takes space in your mind. It's not easy. Those accusations are meant to exhaust you. And at some point, you have to pick your battles and to make sure that you don't spend your time just defending yourself and you focus on what you're meant to do. Because it's what Toni Morrison used to say, that the purpose of racism was to make you do anything but what you're supposed to do. The fact that I didn't feel safe in my own identity and that I had to prove that I was French to people that I didn't even know, who wanted to have explanation on how much I deserve to be labeled French. So that's really what started my reflection on race in France.
Oh, your French is so good, tu parles tellement bien français.
Et donc elles ont vécu la Shoah.
When you speak publicly about feminism, about racism, many people tend to depict you as very aggressive. And to me, it's not the fact that you're aggressive, but they feel attacked because they don't want to see themselves as part of the white supremacy. And just suddenly realizing that they got much of what they got on the back of people who are oppressed is too much for them. So they prefer to accuse you of being aggressive than to question themselves. Just being myself, being me, a Black Muslim woman in the public sphere, is already too much. Without saying anything, I face, offenses, people who, dislikeness, people who are not happy to see me. And bringing the topic of race, which is very taboo in the French context, of course, has made me face much backlash, much violence. So I was in France one of the very first public figure to sue someone over online threats. It was a rape threat in 2013. And I sued the person. There was a trial and I won. And I also started to write for international outlets such as the Washington Post and then The Guardian, which also gives me a kind of influence that I wouldn't have if I was only writing in national news outlets. So that's kind of my strategy. That's been my strategy for the past decade, understanding that France would be challenging, but that there were more rooms out of France, and those rooms could help me actually gaining more influence and kind of respectability in my own place. So I was fortunate to have very early on the support of many institutions, international institutions or institutions from other countries. I've been able to speak at the UN in Geneva, but also in New York. I have had the support of many different places, different universities, including Georgetown here. As a French person, it's interesting to see how the US are used in the French context to deny French racism. Like, we constantly hear that there is systemic racism in the US and that it's not the case in France, that France is immune from racism because of its so-called universalism. So it's interesting to see that US allows France to deny whatever happens on its soil, even if France is the only country to be present on 4 continents. So that tells a lot about our colonialism. And what I can say is that, France is also the mythical place for African Americans. It's been known for being welcoming to African Americans in the 20th century. When you think about Josephine Baker, about James Baldwin, about Chester Himes, Sidney Bechet, so many African American artists who went to Paris from the 20s to the 50s. it really shaped a narrative about France that was not really accurate, because in those times France was also a colonial power that was oppressing people in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Asia. So it wasn't a welcoming country to all minorities. It was to African Americans, because they benefited from the prestige of their Americanness. And as a French person, when I come to the US, I can tell that I'm seen in the same way, because people get from my accent that I'm French, and suddenly I'm not part of the local problem of race anymore, because France is a country that has a strong image, which is very prestigious, and my identity is connected to that part of the prestige of France. And I'm sure that I have access to many things here that African American could not access so easily. And that's why I think it's important when you're not local to understand the dynamics of race and how it can intersect with your citizenship, and how it cannot allow you to erase the local experience. Because I couldn't come to the US and say, oh, it's fine because I'm well treated, and ignoring the fact that so many millions of people actually are mistreated by local systemic racism. And it's the same when it comes to France and African Americans. They were treated very well, but in the same way, other people were subjugated to forced labor in Côte d'Ivoire, in Senegal, in many places that were colonized. So it's very interesting for me to be here, because I'm not the same kind of Black person that I am in France. I've been working with the Gender Justice Initiative program in Georgetown on a research based on my own case, how my public appearance and my public existence echoes a more broad expression of systemic racism in the French media, and how every single controversy I was part of was also displaying something else that is not about me, but about France, and about how the country, the public sphere, the media are able or not to accept to deal with certain issues. So we working on exploring all those datas, there is much to explore, but we're trying to create a kind of pattern, a model that could be used for other people. The community and the solidarity, like not going and trying to solve an issue by yourself, is important, and to make sure that you gather people around the project that you have is important. I've never achieved anything by myself. I was fortunate enough to meet so many people along my path, and I'm still working with so many people that really helped me, giving meaning and giving strength to whatever I do. And I think it's important to think about how you can make a difference with other people surrounding you. And the other thing is that you have to take care of yourself, and there is nothing you will be able to do if you're not okay. So preserving yourself, protecting yourself, having breaks if you need them is the best way to be useful to the cause.